School. Over the past 6.5 years, I've calculated that I've spent about 8,000 hours here. That's quite a lot of time. I'm SeB Cheer, and for me, school is more than just a place for learning. It's a place where I have opportunities to flourish in all aspects of my life. It's a place where everyone should have opportunities to flourish and feel safe and secure, regardless of their race, religion, or economic background, and regardless of their sexuality or gender. Unfortunately, that's not the case for everyone. According to the school report released by Stonewall in 2012, over half of gay, lesbian or bisexual school pupils in the UK experience bullying because of their sexuality. A third feel isolated or ignored by their peers. 99% hear casual homophobia like "that's so gay" on a regular basis. This might be because only half of schools state that this sort of bullying, homophobic bullying, is wrong. So what is homophobia? According to the Oxford Dictionary, it's dislike of or prejudice against homosexual people, so people who are gay or lesbian. Technically speaking, this doesn't include prejudice against people who are bisexual, that's called biphobia. Prejudice against people who are transgender is called transphobia. Lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people can all be grouped under one umbrella term, LGBT, and more recently a plus symbol has been added to reflect the fact that there are many more ways that people might like to identify. So what are all of the letters and what do they mean?
L stands for lesbian, which means a woman who is sexually and/or romantically attracted to other women.
G stands for gay, when one man is sexually and romantically attracted to another.
E is for a person who is sexually or romantically attracted to both genders.
P is for transgender, someone who identifies with a different gender than the one they were assigned with at birth.
Q is for queer, an umbrella term for anyone who identifies under the LGBTQ+ community.
Q is for questioning, someone who is questioning their sexuality or gender.
I stands for intersex. This is for someone whose anatomy doesn't reflect either male or female gender.
P is for pansexual, which means someone who is attracted to personality regardless of gender.
A stands for asexual, someone who does not feel sexual attractions to another person but feels romantic attractions.
A stands for ally. An ally is someone who does not identify as LGBT+, but supports and protects their rights.
Well, in year 8, I suppose, was when I first realised that I wasn't straight, I suppose, was year 8. But long before that I knew that I liked guys. I didn't realise it was a thing.
Of course, the best way to find out about what it's like to be part of the LGBT+ community is to get a variety of different stories and experiences. Firstly, when do people realise that they're not straight?
I was in year 10, which was when I was about 14, when I think I realised that obviously around that age you start having crushes and you start fancying people, and I think that's the point where I realised that sometimes I had crushes on girls just as much as boys.
I think I found my sexuality and who I was a couple of years ago now, and it was completely out of the blue, but there's always been something that I knew was different about me. So I think it all came to a head. Randomly I was talking to someone and he was already out to everyone, and it kind of made me realise that I was actually gay, and so I managed to come out to my friends, but most of them knew already, so to be honest it wasn't a big surprise for them. And I came out to my mum, just her, earlier this year, and she was completely fine with it. And then I came out to the rest of my family about May of last year. Most of them took it pretty well. A couple thought it was a choice and asked me if I was sure, but pretty positive response from all people.
Year 10 was when I was oh, I'm gay. And then quite quickly, I started telling people just because I was I don't want to hide this thing. Like, when I finally found myself, I want to be comfortable with everyone else knowing that. And even if people, and I thought about it and I thought, well, what if people are against that? And I was just kind of like, well, then they're against me and I don't want to know them anyway. So I was like, well, that will separate the people that are my friends and the people that aren't anyway.
Did you lose any friends when you came out?
Not really, no. Because I think maybe some people kind of assumed that I was not straight, so therefore like immediately they were like, oh, he must be gay type thing. So I think a lot of people already thought that. My closest friends, I told a while ago that I like knew that I wasn't straight, and then I just like confirmed it with them after that, and they were like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. But I didn't really lose really any friends. Some people started acting a bit strange, but not anything like, oh, he's gay, gross, we can't talk to him, and you know, nothing like that. But yeah.
What about coming out to your family? What was that like?
I came out to my family in, I think it was about like April of, what year would it have been, 2015. And I realised about like January 2015 that I was like gay. And I was really quite chill about coming out to my family because I thought, I genuinely thought they'd be okay with it. And they were. I'm not going to surprise you, but I'm like, no, plot twist, they win. And they were. So I didn't do like the conventional thing of like sitting down with my family and being like, I'm gay or anything. I literally just, I text my mum because I had like a good day in school and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to come out to my family. So I just texted my mum and I was like, I just wanted to say that I recently realised that I'm gay and I'm like very happy with myself and I just wanted to tell you.
I think the first time I said it was to one of my friends who was out of school, who was a bit older than me, and we'd been close friends for a good many years. And I think she just came over mine one day and I was like, I have something to tell you. And she was like, oh, what? And I was like, oh, I'm bisexual. And obviously that was quite difficult for me because I'd never said it before. And obviously I was still quite confused at the time, so it was tough to say, to get out the first time. And then she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, is that it? And she goes, oh, well, I kind of figured you might be, or I'm not surprised, like it's just you, fits your personality, because I've always been a very accepting person of whatever decisions or cultures that people have. So I think for her, it wasn't, I wouldn't say a surprise, but it was just something that she figured could happen with me. So that was a nice experience the first time. I think a few weeks later, maybe, I started telling some of my closer friends. I was like, hi guys, I think I'm bisexual. And with my immediately close group, I had no fear of it at all because I knew the sort of people they were. I knew they'd accept me and there was nothing about it. I knew they loved me, they loved who I am. Some of my I suppose, not immediately close circle, but still good friends. Obviously where I know them and they know me, but perhaps I don't quite know the narrative as well as my closer friends. So I was a bit worried telling those sort of friends. It was a bit more difficult, but at the same time, you know, once I had, it was fine. With family, obviously I realised I was bisexual 2 years ago and I only actually told my mum in December, which is 2 months ago, so we're in February 2017 now, and I told her December 2016. Over the years, I kind of tried to analyse her reactions to certain LGBT actions, etc. So like, sometimes I'd purposely show her a random YouTube video about something LGBT related, just to see her reaction. Of course, because of my background, I wasn't quite sure. Obviously, I come from Romania. It's quite a traditional country. Although my mother is modern and with the times, I wasn't sure how much of her old values from her past life in Romania she'd kept with her. So again, that was why that obviously made me very reserved. But when I did finally tell her, it was completely out of the blue, completely impulsive. I just went in, she was on her laptop once again. And I said, oh, Mum. She was like, what? I was like, do you know I was bi? She was like, looks up from her laptop. what? Like, I was like, yeah, just, you know, letting you know, I thought you'd have figured it out by now. And she was like, what? You know? So it was quite comical, obviously, because it was so unexpected, and I always do that. I just come out with random things. Like, it was, sometimes I'm so impulsive about things, and obviously she didn't expect it. And it wasn't like a shocked, angry one. It was just like a confused, well, I wasn't expecting that sort of what. Do you get what I mean? So, I mean, it got her attention from her laptop, which was nice. And she just looked up and she was like, oh, what do you mean? And I was like, I am bisexual. And she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, it's pretty okay reaction, I suppose. Like, and then she was like, oh, all right. She didn't really want to talk about it, actually. She was tired. It was quite funny. I was like, are you not going to ask me much about it? And she was like, well, I'm tired. You picked a bad time. It was like 11:30 or 12 at night, by which time she was just about to go to bed. And I, obviously, being me, picked the worst time possible. She was like, well, why would you tell me this now when I'm just about to go to bed? And I was like, oh, I don't know, I just felt like it. And she's like, okay, that's fine, I guess. I mean, it's fine. I don't really have an opinion of it. So I was just like, yeah, just thought, let you know. The reason I did it as well is because I was trying to ease her in to telling her I had a girlfriend, and I thought instead of telling her everything in one, I should take it slow and tell her one step at a time. So I thought, look, if I tell her I'm bi in December, then, you know, later on, maybe in a month, I'll tell her about the other thing. You know, once she has some time to sort of get used to it.
Rob is 16 and discovered his sexuality and came out last summer. Shortly before the summer, he was in a straight relationship, but now happily and openly identifies as gay. So do you think that you sort of had these straight relationships because society tells you?
Oh, no. It didn't have them because society told me to, because I had an increasing notion from what I thought was affection, what I thought was, I'd say love, but like strong feelings for people. Yeah. It wasn't because they're male or female. Obviously, you think, oh, it's a girl, I should like it. Or it's someone who's like that, I should have feelings like that for them. Sometimes it can be fabricated, which I felt certainly towards the end it was a little bit more. But I don't feel that anyway someone went, oh, she's a girl, you must like them, or like, I'm only liking her because society's making me feel like I like her. It was more because I was getting to the age where I thought I should probably have a relationship, or probably should think about discovering a relationship in those sorts of ways. It's a little bit more of a mental battle with yourself rather than a society battle, because I wasn't going, I don't like women, oh, deal with it, because I didn't know myself. Yeah. And I think that's the main discovery with people, not a discovery, or a realisation that you don't have to go with what everyone else thinks you want.
Rob has identified a problem here with society. Our society is heteronormative, which means that it's assumed that someone is straight until they come out. Do you think that the world would be a better place if it wasn't heteronormative and everyone had to come out regardless of their sexuality?
I think it would be a better place if it wasn't heteronormative, but I wouldn't... if I could build a world, I wouldn't build a world where everyone has to come out. I'd say the opposite, where like, whether you're, you know, gay, straight, lesbian, trans, the list goes on. You shouldn't have to come out because it's just such a stupid thing. Like, why should we have to come out? You know what I mean? Like, we make up, I get that LGBT members make up like a minority of the population, but why does that mean we have to come out? It should be something that people are vocally okay with. And I think like more and more people are. I think that in like my family, for instance, I think they would have been like pretty okay with me just not coming out and just bringing someone home. But it just felt weird, you know? And that's the thing, it shouldn't feel weird. Yeah. But because we have this heteronormative society, that you feel like if you're not one of the majority, you have to express that to kind of like protect yourself.
Do you think that if society wasn't heteronormative, so if it wasn't assumed that you're straight before you come out, do you think that it would have been easier for you in your life?
Easier for me? I definitely think so, because I wouldn't have had comments from home being like, are you going to have children? Are you going to get married when you're older? And that definitely did put me off, kind of exploring my sexuality and realising who I was.
It's probably a lot easier for me to come out in 2012, 2013 than it would have been for another person coming out of perhaps a decade before that. I think there's still traces of, well, certainly not traces, but I think there's still a heteronormative culture that limits the way we think about sexuality. And I think it's that kind of heteronormative culture that makes kind of a big deal about the notion of coming out. I think coming out shouldn't be as big of a deal as it is. It's only because there's an assumption of straightness that kind of, not so much stigma, but that kind of feeling exists.
Living as an LGBT plus young person is far from easy. Ryan is 15 and over the past couple of years he's come out as transgender and as gay.
My school found out in September 2016 through a panic attack, which wasn't the best way. Yeah. But going to year 11, being called by my legal name and female pronouns.
Yeah.
That was kind of difficult considering I do go to an all-girls school.
Have you experienced much homophobia or transphobia or both?
Lots of people have made lots of remarks. I mean, I live in the valleys. People aren't most accepting. I live in quite a place which is quite elderly people dominated. And their views tend to be quite old. They tend to have the views of, how they were growing up and that being gay is wrong, there are only two genders, etc., etc. Even people my age are just like, hang on, no. You are female and we're not going to start calling you by male pronouns. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, I've got to cut you out of my life. And it's like, if you ain't going to accept it, then get out of my life. It's the way it is. Like, I do get called transphobic and homophobic slurs when I leave my house, when I walk across the street, when I'm walking to the bus stop for school, even when I'm walking to the shops to buy a bar of chocolate, let's say. It's always people there that are going to shout abuse at you, but you've got to take it.
How does that make you feel?
Annoyed.
If you can put it into words.
Scared. I've always said it, I'm petrified to walk out my door. Scared to walk to school. I'm scared to go out with my friends. But if you live kind of your life in fear of what other people are going to say about you, then you ain't really going to live, are you? So it's either, if something is really, really bad, then I will report it, and everyone should.
It's important to remember that although living as an LGBT plus young person is far from perfect, it's a lot better now than it has been in the past, and life is constantly getting easier.
If I kind of think back to my childhood, certainly my teenage years, I was aware of being gay, but I had huge difficulty with it, and I think it was because other people definitely suspected I was. And throughout my school days, I did face quite a lot of abuse, really, and was called gay, and I would kind of say, no, I'm not. It was kind of it was a very negative experience. It wasn't a kind of questioning, are you gay? It was a kind of pointing the finger, you're gay, aren't you? And so throughout my teenage years, it was something I carried secretly to myself, thinking, well, I am different, but it's okay, I'll go through life and I will never acknowledge it, and it'll be fine, and I'll kind of just about, I think I thought about just surviving life. Growing up knowing that I was gay was really very difficult, because the environment I lived in was very hostile towards homosexuality. We're talking about the early 80s, and my family were very traditional in the way they approached sexuality, and very negative about being gay and things like that. And I myself was I was the only one who went to church in my family, so I was getting messages from church that to be gay is wrong, and I felt really close to God, and I read the Bible regularly and I prayed, but it was I discovered my sexuality at the same time as I discovered my faith, because I was asking deep questions about the meaning of life. I was asking at the same time questions about the meaning of me, and the two didn't kind of fit together. My knowledge of God and what the church was teaching me didn't sit with my knowledge of myself. So I felt a real splitting in the heart of who I was, and I would say I pushed a lot of myself down and kept it kind of secret. That would be my secret. God knew, but nobody else would know. And I would say that for most of my teenage years, and also in my 20s, I lived with that kind of splitting myself. To the world I would present as one thing, but in myself I knew myself to be something different, and I was deeply sad, I think, but tried to hide it.
So in schools, in faith schools particularly, there is generally more homophobia than in non-faith schools. Do you think that's the case in this faith school, and why?
I don't think it is the case here. Long before I came here, the school had a reputation of being very affirming and very open. It had done a lot with Stonewall, organisations like that, to ensure that this was a safe environment to be whoever you are. But shortly after I came here, we did some more work with Stonewall, and became we were named in a report for our good practice on. Then we had like a gay-straight alliance. I think our policy on sexual education is very clear in that it says we do not discriminate on the grounds of sexual orientation. Our values of equality and acceptance are really important. I think we're a very affirming and inclusive place to be. And I mean, I've never felt as comfortable in my work life as I've felt here. So I know young people have come out in school and have felt encouraged and supported, but for myself, working here, so have I. I felt this to be a really encouraging and affirming school to work in. Haven't faced any discrimination.
So you've obviously sort of lived through society a lot longer than the young people taking part in the project have. How much better has it become for LGBT plus people in the world, and sort of how far is there left to go?
Yeah, I think society has moved on hugely. So I'm married to my partner. So I could refer to him as my husband, and if people ask me, are you married? Yes, I am. And they can assume it's a man, it's a woman, it's irrelevant. So I think society has moved on a great deal. And because of that, I think there aren't the same constraints that keep people in silence like I was as a young person. So I'm not surprised that more and more young people, whilst they're in school, come out, because society is understanding and accepting, and you don't have to remain hidden.
So how do we make sure that our schools keep up with society? What can we do to make schools a welcoming environment for LGBT plus young people? What do you think your school does well to combat homophobia?
The school does a lot in terms of general emotional well-being, and specifically in terms of homophobia. There's just been a gay straight alliance set up, which is starting to look at ways to combat kind of homophobia in a school environment. But beyond that, there's also people who deal with emotional well-being. And I think a lot of issues surrounding emotional well-being, a lot of issues that arise in the school are probably to do with sexuality or gender. So I think it's largely down to people helping with emotional well-being to try and combat homophobia issues, which is why the school has put up posters trying to combat the kind of casual homophobia that exists in a school environment, and also establishing assemblies to try and combat homophobia.
Do these posters work? Have you noticed, have they been put up since you sort of arrived here?
They've been put up, I think, within the last 3 or 4 years.
Have you noticed a change since they were put up?
I think I certainly have noticed a change. It's been gradual, but since the posters have been put up, they're obviously not the only factor, but since the posters have been put up and since the school has sort of changed its attitude towards homophobia, I've noticed less people making offhanded remarks about something being so gay, and also people's attitudes towards LGBT people, I think, have changed as well.
You run an LGBT society in your school. What impact do you think that has on the school and helping people who are LGBT to A, come to terms with themselves, and B, to sort of fit in and be accepted?
Well, I know it had a big impact on me because it made me realise that being LGBT could not just be kind of, something you had to put up with, but because I met lots of different people in the community, it was kind of fun because you could, make gay jokes and all that with friends and people you were comfortable with, which, that really helped because it made me feel that it wasn't something that I had to be kind of ashamed of, or something that I had to bear. It was something that could be kind of a good thing, maybe.
If you could give one piece of advice to somebody questioning their sexuality or trying to come out, what would it be?
It would be to do what I didn't do, which is to share what you're feeling. Find someone, look around for someone who you think, I think it would be safe to talk to that person. And that goes back to the question, is it good to have role models? I think, I like young people. Since I've been here 8 years, a number of people have come to talk to me, and I don't think I'm necessarily out and proud. I just try and be, I'm just a normal person. I might occasionally refer to my husband, and 2 and 2 makes 4, but that makes me a person possibly who you can come and talk with. So my piece of advice is, please talk.
Take the time to think and take your own measures. Don't think, oh, I think that I'm gay. I have X amount of time. Don't put a time limit on it. It's very fluid.
Honestly, take it slow, because if you think of how long it took you to accept yourself, it's, you've got to be patient with other people and be patient with yourself when telling other people, because it's not... When I first came out as trans, I wanted to tell everybody like that. I wanted things to change so quickly, and that's just not the way it happens. And it sucks, but that's the way it is. So just be patient. Don't be afraid to be you, because that's the mistake I made for 3 years. And honestly, now that I've told the majority of people who I am, I'm happier overall, and I've stopped. People have become less and less worried about me because they've seen that I've been able to, be myself more, which has made me relax more. So yeah, that's it, just be you.